All right, welcome back to Genius. In the previous session, we actually stopped at substring because it was getting too lengthy and we had a lot to talk about. And when we are talking about the properties and methods of string, it is actually plenty. So we couldn't do everything in one session in order to cut the time. So here we'll start with modifying strings, okay? Remember, we have been talking about properties and methods that are available on the string object. So let's take a look at how do we modify string. All right, so the first one we look at is the replace, okay? The first one we look at is the replace. All right. So when you have a string, and inside the string, you want to replace a certain part of that string with another new string. So we use the replace. Okay. Let's say now the replace method replaces the first match of such value with a new value. Okay, so let's say we have a string like this, hello world. So if you want to replace the hello or the word, all right, you use the replace method. Let's say I want to say, instead of hello world, I want to say hello universe. Okay, so I could actually replace the word with a new one. So this is how you do it. You use the replace method, then pass in the string that you want to replace with the new one. So if I go to code now, all right, so I will just have to get this things off. So let's say I have this particular string, and let's say I have it, I'll call it greeting. Okay. So this greeting, I have hello world. Okay. And if I want to replace, okay, I want to replace the word with maybe universe, I could do something like this, console.log. Remember, I could actually store the return value of this method. Remember what we talked when we talked about return values of functions. Okay, I could actually store it somewhere and use it later, but this time I just want to print it out. So if I say greeting dot replace, all right. Now, remember what I taught you in the last class. Before you even use any method like this, always try to read the documentation. Okay, so this replace, okay, we have um, different four versions of it. The first version, uh, the first one, if I take my mouse over it, okay, first of all, if I take my mouse over the replace, it says that this method replaces text in a string using a regular expression or such string. We will talk about regular expression in the next session, all right? So the first param here is search value. So this search value is a string or a regular expression to search for. So this time around, we want to replace word. So the search param here, the search value here is word. So I will put in word. That is what I want to replace. Okay, that's the first parameter. Okay, that's the first parameter. Then the second parameter is the replace value. So if I take my mouse over it again, the second parameter is replace value. So it's a string containing the text to replace. So when the start value is a regular expression, we will not use regular expression here because we have not talked about regular expression. So in the next session, we'll talk about regular expression. So, but we are not using regular expression. We are going to use the normal string. So when it is a regular expression, all matches are replaced if the G flag. Don't bother about this G flag or the Y flag. We'll talk about it in the next session. But what we are saying here is this: whatever we want to replace, we want to replace word with what? With universe. All right, that is it. We want to replace word with universe. So this replace actually have don't worry, we will not go into this here because you might get confused. We haven't talked about something we call overloading, function overloading. Okay, when we talk about advanced function, we talk about a particular function having multiple versions. So we'll not talk about it here. But for now, just understand that the minimum way you can use it is this. This is what we try to replace this word. All right, inside of this our string, we want to replace it with universe. So if I run, I think I should expand my Visual Studio. Sorry. So if I run this now, if I run without debugging, you can see we got hello universe. So we have replaced the word with universe. All right. We have replaced the word with universe. So I can also say I want to look for um, this would actually replace the first. Okay, let me take this thing back before I make this my example. This will replace the first occurrence. If I say hello and I have this word two places, all right, it will only replace the first occurrence, all right? It will only replace the first word, all right? So this replace will replace only the first occurrence of this string that you're looking for. So if you have multiple of it, it only replace the first occurrence. We'll have another one that can replace everything, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. So now this is how you replace. So yeah, I can also say I want to replace, let's say LL. All right. I want to replace LL with YY. All right. So wherever I have LL, in this area I have double L. So if I run now, it's going to find that LL and replace it with YYY. Do you understand? Okay. But if I say only one L, all right, it will only get the first L, all right, and replace it with with the triple L. Why? You can see the way it is. So just play around this. Understand that it replaces the first occurrence of the first argument with the second argument. So just play around with it, take your mouse over it and read these parameters, okay? Read the documentation to understand better. All right. So we also have the replace all. All right, we have the replace all. The replace all does almost the same thing, but this time around it will replace all matches. The replace only replaces the first occurrence, but the replace all will replace all the matches. Just like now we have two words now, the universe will replace the two of them. So if I go back to code, oops, if I go back to code and I have, if I say replace all, it will replace all the L. It will replace all the L with Y, 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 Y. It wouldn't just do the first occurrence only. It will replace all the L. It will replace all the L. So look at it. Everywhere we have L has been replaced with Y, Y, Y. So if I also say I want to replace word, let's try something. Let's see if it is case sensitive. If I'm looking for a word and I want to replace it with universe. Let's find out if it is case sensitive. All right. Now it is case sensitive. Do you understand? It is case sensitive. All right. So let me explain what I mean by case sensitive. I think I have explained it in previous session before, but I'll also do it again. Let me run again. All right. Now the thing is this, case sensitivity means the first capital uppercase W is not something with lowercase w. So case sensitivity has to do with the cases, lowercase, uppercase. So the first time we were looking for word with small w. So it didn't match it because we don't have anything like that. So it is case sensitive. You have to be very careful with it. All right, unless you want to use regular expression to do that. But if I try to use regular expression here, don't mind if you don't understand what I'm doing here. Okay, but I'll put this I, and I wouldn't want to confuse you, but let me just try something here. We'll talk about regular expression in the next. Okay, there is an error. Okay. All right, don't worry. We'll talk about regular expression in the next section and we can explain better. It says string prototype replaced all code with a non-global regular expression argument. Okay, don't worry, but just understand that this is case sensitive, okay? It is case sensitive. Whenever you're trying to use this replace all, understand that it is case sensitive. All right. Watch the cases, the letters you're using, watch their cases, okay? All right. So the next one we'll take a look at the trimming, how to trim strings. Let's say now we have this function called trim. The trim removes white spaces from both ends of a string. it removes white spaces from both ends of a string. You can look at this hello world here. We have a string, we have an empty string, white space here, we have white space here. So it will remove the white space from the both end, okay? So if I go back to code and do something like this, okay, to actually show you that this, let me do this. Okay, let's say, um, let me say name. Let me use name here. Okay, and then the name is, I have some white spaces and I call it John, and I have another white spaces here. So if I say console.log and I say console.log, I'm using template literal here. I'll say hello and I would use this name. All right. Okay, so don't use name, please. You can say first name. Seems like that name is a reserved keyword in JavaScript, so don't use it. Name is deprecated, so don't use name again. Stop using name. Just look for something better. Okay, so if I run this now, we are going to see that this will have some spaces. Hello, and you can see we have these spaces. I can even say hello, and I can put another thing here. So hello, John. I can say um how are you? Okay. If I do this, you could actually see the white spaces in both ends. You can see we have this white space and we have this white space here. So, but if I want to trim it, I could just say um, first name dot trim. If I call this trim method on this first name variable, it's going to remove the white spaces from both ends. If I run now without debugging, you can see we no longer have those white spaces because we have trimmed it. So trim method is used to remove white spaces from both ends. Okay, that's what trim does. Okay, if you take your mouse over it, okay, it removes, look at the documentation, it removes the leading and trailing white spaces and line terminator characters from a string. Okay, so this is what it does. All right. So we could also take a look at the trim start and the trim end. Just like the name sounds, the trim start will remove the white spaces from the start, and the trim end will remove the white spaces from the at the end. Okay. So if I go to code now, if I say trim end, trim start, all right, it will only remove the start white space. It will not remove okay, look at it. This white space is also still here. All right, but we no longer have the white spaces we had before. But if I say trim end, if I say trim end, okay, and run, it will remove the white space at the end, but the trailing white space is still there. Okay, so the leading white space is still there, but it has removed the trailing white space. So trim end, trim start, they just do what their name sounds like, and trim takes out all the white spaces both from the start and the end. While trim start, remove the white space from the start, trim end, remove the white space from the end. Okay, so that is it. Now, what about padding? Okay, now we can pad your string. Okay, now this pass starts. All right, the pass start adds a certain string at the start of your string. So it pass the string from the start until it reaches the specified length. So look at it. We have this string 5 and we are padding it with 0, 0. Okay, and we say the length is 3. We want it to be 3. So if I go to code now, okay, let's say I have John and I don't have these white spaces. Okay, I have John and I want to pad John. I want to pad it. So I could say console.log. I could say first name dot pad start. That means I want this John is how many characters? 4. But maybe I want it to be 10. I can say the length is 10, and I want to pad it with, from the start, I want to pad it with zeros. So if I save and run, okay, you can see that from the start we have 6 zeros, all right, because this John has just 4 characters, and we say we want to pad it till it up to 10 characters, and we want to use O's, all right, to actually pad it. Now, if you take your mouse over this pasta, look at, always do this whenever you're using methods, always read the documentation. It says it passed the current string with a given string, possibly repeated. Okay, that's what we have done with the zeros, so that the resulting string reaches a given length. The given length is the 10 that we set the length to the first argument, which is 10. In our case, we said it pad it to until it gets to 10. That's the length. The padding is applied from the start, from the left. That's because it is past start of the current string. So the first parameter here is the mass length, the length of this resulting string once the current string has been padded. If this parameter is smaller than the current string's length, the current string will be returned as it is. Now let me explain this thing. If the parameter with the mass length, if the mass length is smaller than the current string's length, the current string will be returned as it is. So here, our length, the string length is 4. If we say we want it to be 3, now, the mass length now is less than the current length of the string. So it will return John with no padding, because you said maximum length should be 3. Meanwhile, John is already 4. So it will return John as it is. So if I run now, we just return John as it is. Do you understand? Okay. So the mass length is the number of characters you want that string to finally have after the padding. So since the length here is less than the length of the original string, it's not going to pad anything. So I bring my mouse back. So the fill string is the second parameter. So the string to pad the current string with. So this is where you say, okay, I want to pad it with this particular string. If this string is too long, it will be truncated and the leftmost part would be applied. So if you have, if I have, now let's say I take this thing back to 10 and I say I want to pad this thing with a lot of zeros that is even more than 10. It will be truncated. This will be truncated to just 6. You understand? To be truncated, no matter how the length you give here, to be truncated, because we only want here to be 10. So it will be truncated from the left, all right? So let's say we have, you can play around it. You can play around it. Take your mouse over it again. So the default value for this parameter is empty string. So if you do not provide anything, if you do not provide anything for this particular parameter, all right, it will pad it with empty string, which will look something like this. Empty string before John. Do you understand it? Okay. You just empty space, like white space. Okay. All right. So the same thing goes with the pad end. All right. It's just the same thing, but this time around, it's going from at the end of it. Okay. So repeating strings, you can repeat strings by using the repeat method. So let's say you have her. You want to repeat it 10 times. All you have to do is to do the string dots repeat how many times it is. So let's take a look at it. So here, let's say I just want to repeat John by 10 times. If I save and I run, all right, we're just going to have John in 10 times multiplied by 10, okay? You take your mouse over it. It says it returns a string value that is made from count copies. So it makes a copy of the count that the parameter you're giving. So if count is 0, the empty string is returned. So if I say repeat and I say 0, that means we are going to return an empty string. Okay, I'm bringing this thing to your notice for you to really understand these things. Okay, always read. Always, anytime you want to use any method, please read the documentation. And whenever you start writing your own functions, always put documentation, because you can see how it makes life easy for us. All right. Now you're actually reading somebody else's function. This method was written by the JavaScript team. All right. And they have given us very good documentation. So our functions, when you're writing functions, they should be documented so that when another person is using it, they know exactly what that thing does and how to use it. Okay. All right. So we also have the splitting, in as much as we have not talked about arrays, but we'll just still explain this one. We'll talk about arrays in the next chapter. Okay. So you can split a string and you can also join strings. So when you split a string, all right, it will return an array, all right? And so let's take a look at how it was. It splits a string into an array of substring based on a specified separator. So you give it a separator and you give it the limit you want it to return. So if we go back to, so let's say we have John Doe. How are you doing? Okay, so this is a long string, but we want to do what? We want to split it. So I will use the split. Okay, and if you take your mouse over this split method, it says it splits a string into substrings using the specified separator. So and return them as an array. So first of all, you have to the first parameter here is your separator. So what do you want to separate this? We have a string. So how do you want to separate them? Now we want to separate them based on the empty space, like the empty string. Okay, so I can provide the separator as an empty string. So wherever it sees an empty string, it will break it out and it will break it out. So if you do not provide any separator at all, it would a single element array containing the entire string is returned. So if you don't provide any separator, it will just return a single element array. Okay, so if I go now and say I want to separate this string by spaces, by these white spaces. So I will see John, and after John, I have a space, though, after the though comma, I have a space. So it is going to separate them like this. So if I run this now, we are going to have an array of John. Don't worry, we haven't talked about arrays, so don't get confused if you don't understand what arrays are. But we have splitted this with empty space. So depending on how the string is structured, you can actually find a separator. Okay, let's say we have, instead of spaces, let's say we have comma. Let's say we have comma. That's what separated this. Okay, let's say we just have comma. So in this case, we are going to use comma as our separator. All right, so whatever the separator could be, that is what you would use as a separator. So if I save now, we are going to use comma as a separator, so it will still give us the same thing that we got. Okay, all right. So it gave us an array like this. Okay, this comma you're seeing here is not the comma we put here. Oh. The comma we are using here is the separator. So we are separating arrays. Actually, when you have an array of string like this, it is separated them by with comma. So here, this comma is just, I could actually change this comma to slash like this, and this is good. This will be my separator. Okay, so let me not confuse you with that comma. I could separate this like this. Okay, so and the separator is going to be this. And if I run, you can see we separated them based on the for. So, but what if you put something that does not exist? Let's see, it's going to just return the whole. Now, it will just return the string. All right. If you put in anything that does not exist as a separator for the string, it will just return the string like that. We also have the limit. Okay, the limit. All right, if you take your mouse over the split, this limit says a value used to limit the number of elements returned in the array. If you watch, if we do this, we'll have the total we are having here is like 6. So we have 6 elements in this array. So if you want to limit it, if you don't want it to be 6, let's say I just want 2. Let's say I want 4 instead of 6. I will limit it by 4. Do you understand? So I will only return 4 instead of 6. So this is the limit. How many elements do you want to return? But don't worry, if you don't really understand this thing very well, don't worry because you don't understand the array. We'll talk about array in the next chapter and you're going to understand better. Okay? All right. So we also have the join. In this one, we will join string of arrays to become one string with a separator. Okay. All right. So let's say we have this array now. Let's say I have this array. Let's say I have, I'm sorry if you don't understand this, but don't bother too much. If you don't understand the array, let's say I have this as string of arrays. I have something like this. Okay. If I have array like this, I could actually combine them to be a string. Oops, sorry. I could actually combine them to be a string. So instead of split, I will do join. I will join them together. And what is my separator? I would want to join them an empty space. Sorry. So this is going to return a string for me with spaces between them. John Doe Kevin. If I say the separator is going to be slash, it will be John slash Doe slash Kevin. Okay, so this is how it works. Don't worry if you don't understand array, but you can come back to this later on. Okay, all right. So, of course, we already know template literals. We have seen template literals several times. I'm not going to talk about it here again. We have also seen escape sequences. All right. If you want to escape the new line character, you put a backslash. We talked about escape sequences in the previous sessions. Okay. You use the backslash, the double quotes, you use backslash to escape them. We have talked about them. So, regular expressions in strings. I wouldn't talk about this because it might, in the next session, we'll talk about regular expression. So we might bring this match method and the search method and the search all method because they are using regular expression. So when we talk about regular expression, just understand that there is this match, search, match all, they exist. Even the replace that uses a regular expression, they exist in the string. So when we talk about regular expression in the next session, we'll bring them back, okay? I promise you, we'll bring them back, we'll talk about them, and we'll explain these methods that have to do with regular expression. But if I go on to explain now, you will not understand because we have not talked about regular expression. So I'm not going to assume you know regular expression. So after the next, during the next section, when we're talking about regular expression, I'll bring these methods back. Replace, match, or search. We are going to bring them back with the regular expression, okay? So the next one is the local sensitive string comparison. Now, if you want to compare strings, okay, if you want to compare string, or you want to say you want to compare A to B, okay? Now, okay, so I'm looking for the best way to explain this. So let's say I want to compare, let me take this guy out. Okay. So if I want to compare, this is A, all right? I want to compare A with another letter. I will say A dot local compare. Okay. I want to compare it with B. All right. I want to compare it with B. Okay. So if I want to compare it with B, what do I do? I'm doing this. Now, the thing is this. It's going to compare, all right? Okay, I will do something like this. I will compare A, I will compare B to A. I think this will help me in my explanation. Okay, and I will also compare A to A. And we'll see the results, what they give us. So in case you want to do some manipulation with your string and you want to compare some characters, some letters, some characters, okay, you can use this to compare them. So, but look at what the result we will get. If I run this now, we are going to get the first one gave us -1. That means A compared to B gave us -1. B compared to A gave us plus as in +1, and A to A gave us 0. So let me start from the 0. Whenever you're comparing the two characters, if they are the same, they will give you 0. I'm going to explain it later. So if you're comparing a letter that is after another letter, now A and B comes after A comes before B. So B comes after A. So if you're comparing a letter like this, it will give you +1 or positive number. It will give you a positive number depending on the JavaScript environment that you're running in it, okay? If you compare two letters that are the same, two characters that are the same, they will give you 0. If you compare a letter against a letter and the first letter comes after, just like A and B comes after A, it will give you a positive number. If you're comparing a letter and the letter comes before, it will give you a negative number. But let's explain this. Okay, so let's go like this. Let's do something like this. I will say console.log this is A. Okay, I want to get the character code. I want to get a car code of this A. So I could do something like, let me use the index here. Okay, I could also do the same thing with B. Okay, let me use this to explain why we are getting whether positive or negative. Okay, so now if you want to get the character code, remember we talked about what's this when we talked about character set and Unicode and stuff like that, we understood that the Unicode for these characters are just numbers. Okay, that is how they are used. So now what is the character code of A and character code of B? So if I run this code now, you're going to see that the character code of B is greater than the character code of A. Do you understand? Okay, the first one, this 97 is for A, all right? And this 98 is for what? B. So what we are doing, when we are comparing A against B, we are saying we are saying the character code of A minus the character code of B. So 97 minus 98 will give us a negative number. Do you understand it? Okay. Now, when we say B compared to A, we are now saying the character code of B, which is 98, minus the character code of A, which is give us a positive number. So when we now say character code of A minus character code of A, it will give us 0. Okay? So now if we are comparing, let's say instead of comparing B, let's compare C, it will give us maybe -2 or something. Okay, it will still give us -1. So generally, it will give us -1 because once it is less than, it will give us -1. So here we are actually comparing their character code. And we are saying the character code of this first one minus the character code of the one we are comparing with. So for you to understand why we are getting negative numbers, all right, you need to understand that their character code is what they use to compare them. So character code of A is 97, and we are saying is A equal, we are comparing A to B. And A is 97, B is 98. So 97 minus 98 will give us -1. So when we want to check their position in the alphabet, okay, if the result comes as -1 or minus anything, that means the character comes before. All right. If it gives us a positive number, that means the character comes after. Okay. I just hope you can grab this. All right. I just hope you can grab this. Okay, so but just understand when you're comparing characters, if the character, just like here, we are doing A comparing to C, since A comes before C, we are going to get a negative number. So you can use this thing to do your comparison and watch out for the return value. Okay, so this will return, just read the documentation to understand better. Okay, so we might not talk about the local, all right. Another argument is the local, so we'll not talk about it, but we'll talk about localization, internationalization and localization later on, both in HTML and in JavaScript, so we can explain that better there. Okay, so try to understand this as much as you can. If you don't understand it, no problem, you can reach out to us, let us explain better for you. Okay, so we also have the car art. If you want to access the car art, okay, so let's say we have this returns the character at a specified index, just like what we have done here. Okay, if I go back to the code, okay, I have let's say I'm doing console.log and I have a string hello. Okay, and I want to get the character at a particular index. So I want to check the character at this particular, let's say, remember index starts from 0. That's the positioning. So 0 index here is H. If I say I want the character at index 0, I'm going to get H because H is the first position, which is the 0 index. So I'll get the character at 0 is H. The character at, let's say 4 will give us 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the character at 4 will give us what? O. So if I run, I'm going to get O. All right. But if I say character at index 5, let's see what it gives us -1 because we don't have any character there. It will give us nothing because we don't have any character there. Okay. All right. The next one is also car code. So if you want to get the car code, All right. If you want to get a character, you use char art. If you want to get the unique code of it, of that particular character, what is the unique code of that particular character? Let's say we are doing the industry, the code, the unique code, the code there, the character there is L. So we want to get the unique code value of it. So we just say when we run L, the unique code value for L is 108. All right, so that's the unique code value of it. So these are the two. We have car art. We used to get the character at a particular index. We have car code. We used to get the Unicode value of that character at that index. Okay, the ASCII code. All right, so we also have the converting, where we can convert from car code. All right, so here you're just giving some characters. You're giving some ASCII code, you're giving Unicode values, and you're converting them to a string. So before I say thank you, let's just take a look at it. So let's say I want to convert some character codes. Let's say somebody gave me, instead of giving me the string value, they gave me the Unicode, the Unicode values. So I can just convert them to string and say string dot from car code. All right. You can also say from car code or from car code point. Okay. Both of them work. So if I say, now this is where we are using that spread operator. Remember, we talked about spread operator when we are talking about functions. And anything, when you're using a spread operator like this, anything you put in inside this argument list is they're going to see it as an array. So I just say I want 34, I want 67. So this is just going to convert all these guys to their string values, to their ASCII values. So if I run now, I'm going to get this. So 34 is the code 34 represents the character quote, the double quote. 67 is capital C, 98 is small letter B, 76 is capital L. So you can use code like this to convert to string. And you see the reason why we have to teach you things step by step. If you have not learned about character set and character Unicode and character set and stuff like that, you wouldn't understand these things. So make sure you understand those concepts before going to that. And if you do not understand, please just go back to that character set and character encoding we talked about in its own section. So thank you very much. This is where we draw the curtain. And if you have any question, any confusion, please drop it in the comment section or please reach out to us. All right. We're always available. Reach out to us. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next session.